I think the main sort of cause of my anxiety is watching it 8 times, though. I hear you were inconsistent. This has never happened before.
I wrote this in the show notes ages and ages and ages ago, shortly after we released the last episode, and I'd forgotten what it was about. And for you, Ryan, I thought you'd be unhappy with me if I left it as just, I can't remember what I was inconsistent about, so I have gone back and I've figured it out.
I appreciate your commitment to the cause.
I mean, like, this is not that exciting either, but I thought I'd point it out just because I'm always pointing out how inconsistent you are. In the last episode, we were talking about how many shows have podcasts about them made by the fans, and I started that conversation saying, asking the question, how many shows have a dedicated enough audience to make podcasts, and I was implying that there are not many shows that do that. And then later on in that very same conversation, I made the point that probably most shows have a podcast made about it because there are a lot of podcasts in the world and lots of people get very into basically anything. So there's me being inconsistent, and I shall own up to it.
You see, at least I'm inconsistent over a course of weeks rather than minutes. I have standards about my inconsistency. Well, if anything, I've been hyper-consistent because I've made yet another mistake while talking about Predator. I very strongly implied that it may or may not just be a resprayed Foxic, and it turns out that is completely not the case. There's a very convincing photo of the two of them right next to each other. Kind of shows up some of the major differences. Predator seems to be a little larger, for example. And of course, the fact that Foxic fought at RoboGames very shortly after BattleBots was recorded, I suppose I should have realised meant they were probably separate.
This is going to be the follow-up that never goes away. Next time, we're going to have even more follow-up about how you were wrong about Predator, I think.
Well, the trick is just not to mention Predator again.
That's it. You'll never hear us talk about it.
Perhaps we should give it a code name.
What code name would you suggest giving it?
I felt like you were maybe more of a code name person than me. You're often the person coming up with our descriptions. So I feel like this is really your domain.
Yeah, but I am shockingly bad at naming things.
I mean, admittedly, if you were better at naming things, you wouldn't have let us call this Spinnerproof. So I don't know why I'm expecting anything here. We have an awful name.
That's fine.
Naming things this is completely off track already, but to me, naming things is one of those things where you just have to take something that's not terrible, because you're going to learn to live with it.
Yeah, it is the hardest thing in computer science. Shall we move on? Oh no, we have more follow-up, I guess, or is this front matter?
This isn't really follow-up, it's kind of front follow matter up, something like that. Basically, for those who missed it, we did a RoboGames live stream. It wasn't a complete disaster. And if you want to listen to it, you can do that through the way that you're now going to explain.
Why am I going to explain it?
Because I can't remember where it is.
There'll be a link in the show notes to the MP3 file of the live stream if you want to listen to a live event, I think weeks after it happened now. But you can also go to spinnerproof.com/live, which is the page that we do the live streams from. And if ever we do a live stream again, that'll be where you can go listen, and there'll be a list of all one of the live streams we've previously done for you to download and laugh at us for.
So we're not taking this as an opportunity to promote our upcoming live stream that we haven't organised yet.
So next Saturday, which will be the 26th.
I'd say you had to say the next, didn't you?
Yeah. Which will be the 26th of whatever month we're currently in. May, 26th of May, will be
2018. Let's clarify that as well, because who knows how long this is going to be on the internet for.
So, May 26th, 2018 will be the 1 year anniversary of Spinnerproof. That'll be one year. Whoa.
What calendar are you using there? Gregorian?
Oh my God.
Carry on and I won't derail you this time.
Well, you say that, but you're going to keep interrupting with other stupid things.
I'm going to try not to.
But yeah, that'll be 1 year, I guess, since we bought the domain name, which is sort of what we've decided to go with as when Spinnerproof was like an official thing that existed in the world. So on that Saturday, we're not quite sure what time yet, but probably in the evening, BST, we will do a live show again, we think. And you should follow us on Twitter to see when exactly we're going to do that.
So yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different to the one we did for RoboGames. RoboGames was very much, there's a thing happening and we're going to talk about it, and it is its own self-contained event. This is going to be more, At least I assume it's going to be more, we are recording kind of a normal episode that's going to go out as a normal one, and you can be there while we're doing it kind of thing. Is that...
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's the thing we initially discussed. I've just realised we haven't spoken about it since. We're planning this on air, essentially.
That's fine. But yeah, that is the idea. If you listen to other podcasts, like anything on the Relay Network or ATP or whatever like that, they do this. This is not an unusual thing for podcasts to do. And now we're going to have a go at doing it. There'll be a chat room there. You can go there. It's an IRC chat room, but there's like an embedded thing you can go to and just pick a username, connect, and you can talk to us. And it'll be interesting, if nothing else.
I'm really surprised by how much fun I had doing the Robo Games one. It's been a few years since I did proper live... I mean, radio's a grandiose term for what I was doing at uni, but it was technically radio. And it turns out I've missed that a lot more than I realised. There's a certain pressure to it that I think I thrive on a little bit. Although it's very hard not swearing, because I'm so used to being edited afterwards that I think I've started relying on that a bit.
Yeah, well, hopefully doing it live will make it a better show. But yeah, that was interesting, and yeah, you get to hear some of the jokes that we edit out.
It's good that we were talking about editing things out, because I'm potentially about to be quite libelous.
Brilliant.
So, we haven't really done much stuff since the 2 new Chinese competitions kicked off. And that means that we haven't been able to talk about the good stuff or the bad stuff. And because I know this is going to be a really positive episode for other stuff, I'm just going to go through the bad here. This is Fighting Robots, has been quite entertaining so far. Clashbots is a steaming pile of dung that the world would possibly be better off without. But there's been an issue on both, and that is the issue of robotic plagiarism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when King of Bots first happened, we kind of joked about a few robots being knock off this, knock off that. And I'd like to think we did that in fairly good humour, knowing that a lot of these were very new teams who were taking ideas that they knew worked as a kind of leg up for their first build. And I think I'm still kind of okay with that. There have, however, been 2 instances of genuine plagiarism. So the first was in This Is Fighting Robots, and it was from an Indian team who took a CAD design that Craig Danby had done for a vertical spinner version of Foxic and just made it. They did try and claim they had permission, it turned out they didn't. That was all a bit of a storm. I thought that was as bad as it was going to get. But then we had the latest one. Now, this was an interesting one because the Foxic one was obviously very much Craig Danby's design. It looks like Foxic, it's quite a unique robot. This, however, was a flipper. Now, to me, it was super clear that it was completely plagiarised. But a lot of people are saying that, oh, it's okay, all wedge flippers look the same. So I have devised a test of this theory. You will find on Dropbox a set of images of flippers, and I'm wondering if you, as a fairly big Robot Wars fan, but not quite the obsessive I am, can recognise what they all are.
Okay. We'll give this a shot. This image will be in the show notes, right?
I've just realised I've uploaded a very slightly wrong one, but it's fine.
Okay. The correct image will be in show notes or the incorrect one? One of these images will be in show notes.
The one that I've used will be in the show notes.
So top left is what, Dan Tonkia?
Correct.
Top right is, was that push to exit?
Correct.
On the middle row on the far left, you've got Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
Got Eruption in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Got Iron Ore 6, I'm going to guess, on the right.
Mm-hmm. Bottom row is the hardest, I think.
So the bottom right is that Russian team, the name of Weber, I believe?
Not quite.
Not quite, okay.
Although I can completely see why you would think that, actually.
That's what it looks like to me. And then I don't know what that one is. In the bottom right, is this almost as if to prove your point, this looks a lot like Apollo? I don't know, but I don't know what it is. Obviously, it's not Apollo. I don't recognise it, though.
So, bottom left is the third place machine from Series 8, TR2. Bottom right is a machine that was in Gabriel's heat in Series 8 and didn't do very well, called Beast.
Oh, Beast, yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that all of these, they have a distinctive look, even without seeing the paint job and things like that.
Yes, I guess we should do a word picture for the image I'm looking at. So I've got basically a white square with just black silhouettes of robots. There's no, other than the outline that they make, there's no like distinctive markings on them at all.
Now it's time to look at the robot that was presented by Clashbots. And I intentionally haven't even sent you this yet.
Okay.
Because I didn't want you to catch so much as a glimpse. So it's going to come over Skype now for you.
Isn't this exciting?
I wonder if you can tell what robot's been ripped off here.
This looks like an awful look like a green Apollo.
A little bit, yeah. Now, unfortunately, the mistake I've made is that I made this image for Reddit just because people were going on about the whole all wedge flippers look the same thing. I made a version for you where I'd put this robot instead of Apollo, but then I sent you the wrong thing, so I kind of buggered it.
Oh.
But that would have been excellent if you went, yeah, that's Apollo. But now we've just got to talk about it properly, like savages. There's no gimmick here now. It's ruined.
Well, you're the one that ruined it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I completely am. But yeah, that is by far the most egregious rip-off we've seen so far.
I think the Terahertz knockoff was the most egregious, personally.
Really? You see, here, I'm really frustrated that you think that. That's the problem, because I think you're so incredibly wrong. But I know that the main reason I think that is that I know the team that made it will have made it while potentially standing next to John Reed.
That doesn't make it any...
I know, my logic is flawed. That doesn't actually make it any less of a similar machine. But I mean, when you look at this, the body shape is identical. Yeah. Even the little window sections are identical. Large parts of the colour scheme are identical. The only differences are basically a visibly lower build quality on the hinge and on the weapon restraint. This isn't just similar to, this is a photocopy.
Yeah, it's it's just Apollo. I mean, you know, if you I think you could make the argument that people would mistake this for Apollo. So, not good, not cool.
And I haven't got to the worst bit yet. Or what I think is the worst bit. That robot wasn't entered by a team. That robot was made by or for the producers of the show. This isn't some team getting a leg up by taking heavy inspiration from an existing design. This is the makers of a TV program copying someone else's work for profit.
Not cool. Not cool. I hope the Apollo guys can do something about that, but I doubt it.
I'd be very surprised if they could. I mean, what do? You don't engage with that competition in future, which, by the sounds of it, most people that were there wouldn't want to anyway.
Yeah.
So that's stage 1 of Ryan's angry front matter. Let's move on to stage 2.
Oh, God.
Which is a new TV programme on Sky One called Carnage.
Okay.
Now, I might potentially have liked the idea of this show until the first advert I saw for it had in big letters, "It's like Mad Max meets Robot Wars," which has got a lot of people comparing it to Robot Wars. Now, this has kind of got a touch of the Megabots about it, where it's a sort of supposedly full contact machine combat thing, but with drivers in the vehicles. So immediately that makes me go, this probably isn't going to be as full contact as people think. But then I saw 2 things. Number 1, I saw that it's being filmed in South Africa, and it is a reasonably common tactic in TV production that when you're doing activities where someone is slightly more likely to get hurt than usual, you do it in a country where that's going to be less of a problem for you. So if you look at something like Total Wipeout, there's a reason that was filmed in Argentina and it's not the weather. The second thing that made me balk a bit was the video that I have put in the show notes for you, and it'll be in the show notes as well, of what looks like an old Volvo estate with a big old flywheel on the back being spun up.
Yes. On a handheld camera.
Yeah. So first of all, think of all the testing videos we've seen where we've gone, that's stupid dangerous. These guys are just as bad. I thought I'd give them the benefit of the doubt and ask a few questions in the comments of that. Obviously, you can go and read those. They're, I think, very enlightening. I think I asked decent questions. I hope I did. What amazed me is that they didn't even know how fast that thing was running when they used it. So they're sat there going, oh yeah, don't worry, it's completely safe. Safety is our first priority. You don't even know how fast your weapon's moving. And like, yeah, okay, maybe the way you drive it will mean that it's less likely to hit the person, but what about any debris that it sends flying? If you don't know the tip speed, you don't know how fast that thing it hits could be moving. It just absolutely astounds me that that has been allowed to happen. And it does absolutely nothing for us when we're having people who aren't really into robot combat looking at it and going, that's not dangerous at all. You know, pair of sturdy work boots, I could stamp that thing out.
I feel like them not knowing the tip speed isn't that surprising, and I don't think it's that much of a problem, I want to say. I'm not sure I can articulate why I don't think it's a big deal, but...
I suppose I can articulate why I think it is.
Yeah.
Which is that these cars obviously have in place some systems to protect the drivers. And they will have been designed, presumably to specification of the producers, that is what the producers believe is sufficient to protect people. Now, the only way to know whether protection is sufficient is to know what forces it's coming up against. So if you don't know how fast that thing is spinning, and its mass and all those other things, you can't even begin to calculate how dangerous it is. Sure, you can eyeball it and go, oh, that looks a bit fast, but what use is that?
This is one of those things that, yeah, I think I can sort of see where you're coming from with it, but I feel like once you've got something that's going very fast, it's sort of like, well, that's going to kill someone. And it doesn't matter how much faster than that is going, it's going to kill someone. And I think you can probably eyeball the point where you go, yeah, that thing's spinning really dangerously. Like once it's going faster than you can sort of like see the tips, or even not even that fast, probably, you go, yeah, you don't want anyone anywhere near that thing. I don't know. It's just sort of like, I think there's a point where you go, I think it fairly quickly crosses a point of being, this is a very dangerous thing, at which point you hopefully put in all the safety precautions you need about like not getting anywhere near it and all that kind of stuff. And then you go, well, you can add a 10% to the speed. It doesn't really change our safety precautions because we're still not going to go anywhere near it.
But they are going near it. That's the thing. This is being used like a weapon would be in Robot Wars, but against a car with a person in it. Which in itself, I think, is a limiting idea, let's say. I still believe that as soon as you put people in anything that's going to fight, the fighting had better be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's every chance I'm out of line on this. I know I like to wade into these things a little aggressively. I've probably said some slightly libelous things, as I did warn. But yeah, I was very, very surprised to see what they were doing.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, really. I think other than they probably shouldn't have a handheld camera that close to it. I think that's sort of like an obvious, don't do that.
It's weird that you're not okay with that, but you're not so worried about the safety aspects otherwise. That surprises and confuses me.
I guess I just haven't really sort of fully thought through what they're doing. So if it's just this car is actually going to reverse into another car with a driver in it, like I don't think you're going to have any amount of car that's reason. I don't know. It's just sort of, I don't know. You've sprung this on me a little bit too much, but like
yeah. So I did my usual thing of trying not to reveal too much too soon, and should probably have given you a little more info. If this gets cut, I'm completely fine with that. By the way, just putting that out there. This was more Ryan has opinions and needs Sam to hear them.
Well, I've heard them. I'll think about it a little bit more, and I look forward to seeing what the audience thinks to this.
I mean, it would help if I'd actually seen the show, really, wouldn't it? But I can't find a copy of it anywhere.
No, I don't have Sky, so I'm not sure we're ever going to see it.
Something that we have managed to see, however, is a little program on Discovery that some people might have heard of. Bering Sea Gold. What a program.
We have watched BattleBots. It's back. We've seen the first episode. Ryan has seen it, 8 times? I've seen it twice.
Casual,
yeah. Well, I've been busy. I was in Devon all weekend with no internet connection. It was great. And, yeah, we've both seen it. Should we start with format stuff? Our favourite topic.
Should we start with our overall opinion first?
Overall opinions.
Yeah, I think let's get that out the way.
God, it's like being difficult, don't you? Well, I really enjoyed it.
It was fucking brilliant, and I don't care that you've got to beep that. I think that opening episode.
It's not even the beeping that I'm annoyed about. It's the fact that you didn't commit to saying "f***." That's what annoys me. You sort of pansy that of it halfway through. You should do that again and do it properly.
No, I think that the way I said that completely expresses how I feel about it. I am still in awe of it.
Yeah, I think the format change, I think, has been worth it. The idea of just putting robots together that are going to make good fights, absolutely worth it. I'm very glad they did it. I'm also very glad that they've still got a bit of like the tournament thing at the end of it. They've still got that knockout stuff towards the end, apparently. So I think they've. So far, I'm optimistic. I think they've seemed to have struck a good balance, and they were just great fights in general. And I hope they continue to be great fights.
I'm very happy to say that opening episode is the best episode of anything I've ever watched. I cannot think of a single 40 minutes of TV that I've ever seen that was more enjoyable. bearing in mind how much hype there was for the opening of Robot Wars Series 10 and how they just killed that in the opening 2 minutes, BattleBots went completely the other way. Less than 5 minutes, we had machines in the arena. Within 6, they were fighting. The pace was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it was really good.
And this whole idea of the hand-picked matchups, I seem to remember being sceptical. I hope I was sceptical, because obviously I've been a big proponent of the legitimate sporting competition, but this is a brilliant idea. It's guaranteed everyone that turns up multiple fights. It's taken a little more focus away from just being effective and winning at all costs. It's hopefully going to allow some of the more out there designs to shine a bit more. I mean, do you honestly think we'd have had robots like Kraken and Battle Royale and even Huge there if it was going to be one and done for any robot that couldn't win its first fight?
I mean, I think this is already, this even in this episode, there have been, like you said, Huge is in there and a couple of others like Duck and Free Shipping, I think, are sort of like, I don't think those are robots that would normally do much in this. I don't think you'd normally see them there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you see Duck, but like, I think it's already sort of shown some slightly more out there designs that are great. I don't know, I think it's already paid off doing that.
And I think there's just a little more of that sense of fun.
Yeah.
We've kind of had that from a few teams and a few machines, so Brutus had a little bit of flair and a little bit of showmanship. Mobius were the same. Obviously, you've got Warhead and Abuldanova, the Knight thing, last time round.
Abwalden Overlord.
That's the one. Yeah, we have seen little moments of showmanship and fun, but nothing like we've already had from this, really, in terms of just the interesting and varied machines. I mean, who in their right mind would enter a forklift otherwise?
Oh, that's a funny robot.
There's only one thing I'm not sure about format-wise. And this is something that I only even found out about today, so I'm still trying to get my head around it. There are, according to the show at least, there are 55 machines, but in the rules, it states that it's a 48 robot competition. Now, on Reddit today, one of the Sharkoprian guys was saying that they were alternates of some kind, but they still seem to have fights. And the show says that all 55 machines are going to be getting up to 4 fights. So I'm not quite sure how it all works in terms of who is eligible for the main competition and who isn't, because it sounds like we've got 48 that are, and another 7 that aren't. But are those 7 only going to fight amongst themselves? Are they sometimes going to fight the ones that are eligible and that will just be accounted for somewhere? I've got no idea what's going on with that. That's the only remaining question mark for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we'll just have to wait and see. I have no further information to give you, shockingly.
Of course, I say 55 robots. I didn't help on that, did I?
What did you do, Ryan? Explain it to the people.
So, there have been rumours, most likely started by Roboteers themselves, since the filming, of a mysterious bot number 56. And the people behind the BattleBot social media decided to embrace this. When they did an image of all of the machines that are in this series, they put La Machine at the end as a little joke. I, as a little joke, and about 3 days after the bandwagon had already left town, decided to do my own version with jellyfish in that place, tweeted it out, and a disappointing number of people thought that jellyfish was at BattleBots because of it.
I don't think that was disappointing at all. I find that quite funny.
I guess I just assume that everyone frequents the same places I do and knows the same references that I do. I mean, I'd be very happy if Jellyfish was at BattleBots. This would be the season for it, but yeah, I tried to have fun and just ended up having to run away from the consequences of my own actions and just let people believe.
Oh dear. I'm sort of, yeah. Well, yeah. I have nothing else to say.
I'm just a bad person at the end of the day. One thing I'm noticing, by the way, is that it's already taken us longer to go through the new format than it took the show itself.
Well, that's because we're not highly polished presenters.
Well, I don't know. I think we could be.
Yeah, with several years of practice, maybe. Maybe by
Stick
year 5.
us in those seats, we'd do a reasonable job.
We'd be a joke.
The thing is, I would quite like to try my hand at fight commentating.
You are welcome to.
Would you not enjoy that challenge?
I would be awful at it. I mean, we can try. We've got the ability to do live streaming.
You see, this is the problem. We've done it, but when you're doing it knowing that you don't have the image to back you up, that messes with you. If I was doing it for video, I think I'd be a bit more comfortable with it.
Well, I mean, we can do it. We can do a live show and then get everyone to like synchronise pressing play on an episode of BattleBox.
I mean, it could happen. Why not?
We could release it as like a special commentary track that will sync up perfectly with the perfectly legitimate versions that people can download.
Do you feel slightly bad about the way we've watched this?
I don't know what you're on about. For the purposes of this, I live in America. As far as anyone is concerned, I'm on the East Coast. It's fine.
Okay, in that case, we won't get into the philosophy of piracy. That other people are engaged. You, audience, you listening, who pirated it, shame on you. We are morally perfect beings. I think you missed out by not staying up on Friday night to watch it, though, because there are some amazing adverts in it.
I was in Devon with no internet connection on Friday night.
Well, that was bad planning on your part. You knew that the series was starting.
Yes, and I'd planned being in Devon before I knew that the series had even been filmed.
Plans can be cancelled. I should know, I'm bloody good at it.
Well, I'm sorry for the not committing enough. We should get into this. God damn it, we've been talking about nothing for ages. Right, rule changes, go.
There have been rule changes. Tip speeds have been limited to 250 miles per hour, which is roughly in line with Robot Wars. Also, a slight change to the judging criteria. The old primary weapon rule that led to some slightly weird judges' decisions, where aggression was only counted using your primary weapon. So, for example, Disco Inferno versus Chomp, the disc was the main weapon, that got broken. They dominated the fight with the lifter, but that didn't count. Now it's just powered weapons. So aggression is when you use your powered weapon or weapons to attack your opponent.
Cool.
Yeah, I can be fast and polished.
Amazing. Do you have any thoughts on the presentation or the editing, anything like that?
So many.
So, of course you do. I have one thought.
I mean, I want to jump in before you.
I'm jumping in before you. I'm going to keep talking until you stop.
I've already stopped. That's the issue.
And I forgot what it was. This is annoying. No, right. So the one thing that I noticed that bothered me was that the cameras obviously are outside the battle box, and then there are sometimes reflections from the protective covering in the shot, and that bothers me.
I think there are areas where it's visible that this is now a slightly lower budget production. And that is definitely one of them. One of the changes that I think is for the better and has also probably cut some costs is that we've got fewer presenters now.
Yeah, we don't have any of that like big stage thing and stuff. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, does anybody miss that, really?
I think they had to either get rid of that or they had to get rid of Farouk, I think.
And you don't get rid of Farouk. Farouk is too good.
Well, if you say so. I'd happily have...
I can understand why you're not a fan of that, but...
No, it's fine. I can like watch it now. The problem I had before is because you had both those segments, it felt like the robots were being introduced at least twice, if not three times. Whereas now it's sort of like they're introduced once or twice, and it's fine. And I did actually sit through all of the Farouk introductions this time.
The feeling I get now is that the pace is so fast that you almost need Farouk in there to slow it down again. Because there's barely room to breathe in it now, and I absolutely love that. We go from a fight, we have a few replays of it and a bit of analysis, and then we're straight into the next one.
Yeah.
I do feel like for the sort of championship at the end, we'll possibly get the stage area back. I'll live with it. But I really think this whole idea of just letting Kenny and Chris do all the talking makes it feel like... It's almost like watching a live event. There's this thread running through of it. It almost doesn't feel like it's been edited together. And it's... Oh, I'm such a big fan of it.
Something I noticed in that vein that it might just be very good continuity, or I think it's more likely it's just the way they did it, where like I think they're doing like Kenny and Chris are doing their bits to camera, like actually while the robots are like just before they're about to fight, and then there's a shot where they do their bit to camera, and then they start turning. There's a cut to a separate camera that's got the battle box in it, and they're still turning around from the shot they've just done, and then the fight just starts. So I think the whole thing, even like the filming of it, seems to be very streamlined, where it's sort of like, right, we're going to do this, and then the fight begins, and it's not like we're going to do those introductions after the fact or in advance or anything like that. It's just the day with, seems to be much less editing perhaps than other shows.
And that's one of the other things I mean when I say that by making this lower budget, they've possibly made it better.
Yeah.
In that it is more as live. We've not got overblown entrances for every single fight. We've just got it for the final one. All those little things just add up and add up to make this much, much slicker. I especially like the way that they're overlaying the little interviews before a fight with the setting up going on in the arena. So we've got that little box at the bottom left with person talking, but also stuff happening there, just streamlining and streamlining. There's one thing that I will criticise, and that is the sound design. I think the music is often too loud, and there's some quite obvious sound effects during fights that I'm not a fan of. Particularly when it's not a spinner in. They like to add big sort of clunking sounds, like in Free Shipping's fight when it went on its first charge at someone, but it's got this really obvious tonk, which just wasn't realistic at all.
Yeah, the music doesn't bother me too much, but I did notice the sound effects. It was a bit, there were, yeah. I almost feel like one day there might be a Wilhelm scream in there.
At least it isn't as bad as Series 8 of Robot Wars, where Carbide hit Nuts' plastic wheels, and we got a little metallic chinking sound. There's at least a little more attention to detail than that.
Yeah, I think most of the time it was all fine. There were only a couple of points where the sound effects stood out to me, and like I said, the music never did, so...
I mean, I'll point out, I've basically had to look for that fault, really.
This is what happens when you watch something 8 times.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The first time I watched it, I just watched it to enjoy it with a few other people where I was watching it. And that was really good fun. And it's not often that I let myself do that, so that was really nice. And I'm hoping to keep doing that, because, as I say, I can't remember being this happy with a piece of TV ever. I feel like I need to reiterate one more time that I am actually happy with something. All the complaining I do on here, I'm happy with this. And I want to ride this wave.
Yeah, no, it's good. Shall we dive into the fights then?
We shall.
So we start as the show did, and we'll start with Blacksmith versus Bite Force.
Really interesting opening fight, this.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the most spectacular on paper, but it delivered.
Yeah, I was expecting this to be a very one-way fight. I thought this is going to be Bite Force is just going to destroy Blacksmith, and it'll be a short fight. But that is not what happened. Not what happened at all.
Something tells me you've forgotten Blacksmith versus Minotaur. Blacksmith can take some punishment.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'd forgotten it.
And it looks even better than it did last time out now as well. All those extra little angles on the armour, the little detailing around the edges. It's a beautiful machine.
I wouldn't go so far as to say beautiful, but yes, it is a good-looking machine.
Okay, it is a machine on which attention has been paid to aesthetics.
Yeah, no, it's a good
The
little,
same
good
cannot
little
be
box.
said for Bite Force, which is still lacking in paint from last time.
I was surprised at how many robots seem to still be beaten up from other fights and stuff.
I don't know if this is being aired in the order it was shot. I feel like it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe that explains some of that. Or maybe it's just the ludicrously short build time.
We'll see, but yeah, there were definitely a few robots that were not brand new, which I think is quite nice. I really liked that, seeing sort of like robots that are not, completely brand new armor and all that kind of stuff that look like they've done fights before. I think that lends a certain something to the robots. It was cool.
You're a fan of a battle-weary warrior.
Yeah. A bit of weathering always helps.
So the shininess of Blacksmith, then, you're not a fan of?
Just the shape of Blacksmith, It's just like...
I like that it's got a slightly industrial look to it, because let's face it, it's very much a brute force machine. Well, I say that, it's not even that powerful. It's more of a tenacious point scorer. But in terms of look and style and theme, I think it's meant to be quite agricultural and harsh.
Yeah, no, it's a good little robot, and the hammer hits harder than I thought it did as well. Given that it's got all these stuff for a flamethrower running through it, I was sort of like, I know it's not the most powerful hammer in the world, but it does seem to hit harder than I expected it to.
It hits hard enough to be a worthwhile weapon.
Yeah.
I think if it hit any harder, it would probably detract from it, because you're going to have instability when you're firing it. Obviously, you're going to damage the flamethrowing part more easily. It's very much a visual weapon, but it still probably hurts.
It's very satisfying when you see it wailing on another robot, because it can just hit backwards and forwards so quickly. Like, as compared to something like Beta, which is like one big hit, but it destabilizes it so much that it's got to sort of take a moment, whereas Blacksmith can just go like bang, bang, bang on this other robot, and it's very satisfying to see that.
It reminds me of, and I don't know if you've seen this robot before, but Grant Imahara's robot, Dead Blow.
I think I've seen it a little bit on Mythbusters, yeah.
So it's kind of a sort of almost woodpecker hammer that doesn't even go all the way back. It's got no power to it whatsoever, but it just hits and hits and hits and hits and doesn't stop.
Yes, good stuff.
As we say, Bite Force, to me, quite uninspiring at this point.
Yeah, it seemed to struggle to get under Blacksmith quite a lot. I feel like there's definitely room to improve the front of their robot a little bit to like a better feeder wedge to get under things. I feel like, I know Blacksmith had the forks on it and stuff, but even when Bite Force was coming from the side, I felt like they were struggling. But I mean, it's a good robot, but yeah, could probably do with a bit of rethinking. I'm sure there are definitely optimizations that can be made there.
I mean, I'd quite like to see a return to the old version of Bite Force. I realise that this is the machine he wanted to build in the first place. You know, he entered with another vertical. They quite rightly said, no thanks, we've got a lot already. Came in with the lifter gripper setup, won the whole bloody thing, and then went, hey, great, I'm reigning champion, I can bring what I want now. But it's another vertical, and we've got a lot of them. It's good. The drivetrain's solid, the weapon hits hard, it's pretty reliable. Paul is an excellent driver, but it's just a bit, nah. And for that reason, I was kind of backing Blacksmith, even though I think it's objectively a less effective robot.
There was a moment in this fight, right, where Blacksmith got its hammer stuck down the weapon mechanism of Bite Force, and it was a real shame at that point that it didn't have its flamethrowers working, because I think that was a prime opportunity there for those flamethrowers to do something damaging for a change rather than just looking cool.
Funny enough, I think it was that hit that broke the flame system as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that is another sort of usage of Blacksmith, really, isn't it? It's not necessarily a flaming hammer, it's also a flaming clamp, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, if they get it in the right place, I think they can put fire in places that you don't want fire.
What, you mean like every place? I don't want fire anywhere in me.
But like inside you, imagine having a hammer rammed down your throat and then fire injected.
That's really Mohawk's MO, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Not that we've ever seen that work. Because that would require actually being able to puncture armour first.
Yes, I think that's less likely to be effective.
How did you feel about the judge's decision on this one?
I think it went the right way. I think Bite Force did do more damage. Really, I think it was really close, and there was definitely a moment where I think if it was much closer than I thought it would be, and I think there were, if the fight had ended maybe a little bit sooner, then maybe it would have been a much closer call, and maybe it would have gone towards Blacksmith. But I think a combination of like Bite Force ripping Blacksmith's armor up a little bit, and also that final quite decisive putting them on the screws there, it was sort of like I think that's sort of, they did enough definitely to take it really.
It's one of those fights for me where I was far more impressed by Blacksmith than I was by Bite Force. But the moment I actually thought about the judging criteria, I don't think I could give Blacksmith a single point. Maybe share the points for damage, and that's about it. It didn't have the control. I suppose you could argue it had the aggression, because it's weapon aggression and not just drive aggression. So yeah, maybe I'm talking myself out of that one a bit. But yeah, absolutely the correct decision. Yeah,
I think Blacksmith was a very aggressive thing. That's sort of one of the things that comes out of its hammer that can hit so fast, is that comes across as a very aggressive thing. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with the judges. I think Bite Force was the worthy winner there, but not by as much as it maybe should have been, or as much as I expected it to be in the first place anyway.
I guess at the time I wasn't expecting a unanimous decision, but with hindsight I can see why it was.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It feels weird that a fight like that is possibly the least interesting of the bunch, as a testament to the episode, really. Should we move on to the more ridiculous element of the episode?
Yes.
Oh boy, all three of these robots they're everything I want in BattleBots. Should we start with Mecha Rampage?
Okay, well, so we have Mecha Rampage versus Duck versus free shipping. And yes, we can start with Mecha Rampage. And I will tell you that when I first saw this, I was like, what on earth is that? There's no way in hell that's going to work. And then I was wrong.
Were you one of those people that had to spend a few minutes working out what it was meant to do?
No, I saw pretty quickly what was going on, but like with the spinner in the middle, but I was like, that just seems uncontrollable and ridiculous, having a robot that's that wide. But which it kind of is. It is ridiculous, but it's ridiculous in a good way in the end. I think it is, yeah.
It'd be more ridiculous to have one that was as long as Mecha Rampage is wide. That wouldn't be very manoeuvrable at all, but width is fine. You can go as wide as you want and still be manoeuvrable. You laugh, but I'm not wrong.
I think it's too wide, personally. But maybe that's just a style thing more than anything. I don't know.
I think it's just wide enough. Mecha Rampage is a robot that is about 50% rotating mass, and that is incredible. That thing must have roughly 50 kilos spinning. Now, granted, it isn't carried in a very effective way as a weapon. A lot of that mass is towards the middle, but still, that thing will be able to hit very hard. And I don't think we saw that just yet in this Rumble. We saw it take a couple of wheels off. Great stuff. I think there's more to come from it offensively. Not that this is a robot that's trying to be effective, it's just trying to be amazing.
And it achieves that, unquestionably, I think.
And then it gets thrown up against two other equally bewildering robots. Free shipping. I know I've kind of already mentioned it a bit, but oh boy. Oh, I could not love that anymore.
Free shipping is just a very, very well executed, silly idea, and it is very good. It's very entertaining to watch.
Do you know what free shipping actually is in terms of what robot it is?
No.
So, the base part of free shipping is a robot called Original Sin, which I think we might have seen on the RoboGames live stream. Basically, a very, very fast and manoeuvrable wedge that's at RoboGames every year. It's the reigning RoboGames champion. It won this year. Driven by Gary Jin, who is just one of the greatest drivers ever. And he decided to take his super competitive and, if we're honest, quite boring design and make it as ridiculous as humanly possible. Because he's Gary Jin and he can. And that is the kind of attitude that I will always look to reward.
Doing things because you can.
Yeah, not worrying about making them competitive, although with Gary behind the wheel, it could still be quite competitive. Just making it fun, making it interesting, having a good time with it.
Yep. I have no major complaints. Like I said, I think it's quite obviously meant to be a bit of a silly robot, and it does it very well, and it is very well executed. I mean, despite being a silly idea, it is still a very competent robot and well built, and I like it. It's good.
It's basically an upgrade on Dumpster Fire from RoboGames.
Good.
Surely you remember that we saw?
You greatly overestimate my memory for these things. I'm sorry.
Basically a bin lorry with flamethrowers in the back shooting upwards. No?
I'm not convinced we saw that.
I'm fairly sure we saw Dumpster Fire.
Okay.
If not, you missed out. Anyway, moving on to what is basically another RoboGames competitor in Duck. What are your main thoughts on Duck?
Is that milled out of one piece of titanium? That's my question. That was seen to be implied when they were introducing it, and I want to know.
It is milled out of one piece of something. I think it's aluminium, not titanium. I think that was a mistake on their part.
Oh, that makes it far less impressive. I was going to be all in awe of it. I think so, yeah. I was going to be all in awe of it.
I mean, titanium's harder to mill in terms of it takes longer, but
yeah,
it's still the same process, the same level of design expertise.
It's more expensive, and it's a tough. It's just, I would just be more impressed if it was a solid lump of titanium. But anyway, no, it is cool.
Yeah, because aluminium robots are never robust, are they? See final fight of this bloody episode.
Aluminium is a terrible material. No one should ever use it for anything. Especially not aeroplanes. But yeah, it was. It's a good little robot.
Only fly in titanium aeroplanes.
I think aeroplanes are like some kind of like aluminium lithium alloy, aren't they?
I don't know, but I think there's a good chance that Duck is also some kind of aluminium alloy.
Anyway, I do like it. I do like these nice, like machined one block of material robots. Duck is quite cool. It reminds me a little bit of Panic Attack, which is good, and yeah, it's a good little robot, I think.
Best logo in the game by a mile. No, Duck again is a sort of evolution of a RoboGames machine. So last year we had Whoops, which was basically Duck with the front wedge, but not as a lifter, just as a sort of hinged static wedge. And that thing had an amazing fight where it beat Last Rites. It just wedged and wedged. It lost 2 wheels, kept on going, ended up sending Last Rites almost up to the ceiling in one hit. Last Rites lands on the floor, internals spewing everywhere, showering sparks. One of the most spectacular things I've ever seen. And guess who they're fighting at some point in this series?
Are they going to be fighting Tombstone at some point?
They are indeed.
Well, that'll be a good fight.
Duck is the spinner killer we've always wanted. We've got no Stinger, they're not there to do it, but Duck are.
I look forward to it.
Now, this is where my Facebook complaint comes up. So Discovery Channel posted a video of this Rumble to Facebook, and it got a lot of views. And I made with...
It got a lot of what Facebook calls views, not necessarily a lot of actual views.
The video began playing on many pages. No, I made the mistake, and I should have known not to, in hindsight, but I made the mistake of venturing into the comments. Word of advice, never read the comments on Robot Combat. Just don't. It's a place of extreme ignorance and it's just the worst thing.
I think generally speaking, you can safely assume that the comments on any website anywhere are a place of ignorance.
You see, this is the problem because I comment on lots of things and there's probably someone out there going, oh God, this guy's so ignorant. It's just because I happen to be obsessed with this one thing. I know how stupid what people are saying is. My favourite was the person that described Duck as a cheap design. Sort of, it's just a box on wheels, isn't it? It's like,
I can see why you'd make that comment though, because it is just a box on wheels. It's just a very well built box
on wheels. I'm fine with. It's the word just. A lot is implied within those 4 letters. That's like sort of looking at a Falcon 9 and going, it's just a firework, isn't it? I mean, there's technically a lot of links, but that word just, that's the one that hurts.
I think though that you know that it's more than just a box on wheels because you know what goes into it in the same way that we both know that a Falcon 9 is more than just a firework or just another rocket because we know
it's a big firework.
We know a lot about what goes into it. But I mean, if you don't go and like spend a lot of time thinking about it, you only watch this thing just as an entertaining thing that you just sort of see when it's on, but don't think about it too much outside of that, then the robots that look more interesting, the robots like Warhead, you go, that is a fantastic looking robot. And you sort of, whereas Duck is a box. And I think putting just on that is perfectly fine. It's justified.
Duck is the best damn box there is.
Yeah. But like, it's an amazing box because of things that you don't necessarily know until you either see it sort of fight a really big, powerful robot or if you sort of think about what goes into what it takes to machine a robot out of one piece of metal.
I suppose the frustration for me is feeling that most of these people are never going to go and find out how good it is.
Well, I'm sorry, man, but the general population, they're not like you.
They're inferior. I'm sorry, who said that? What?
Must be a ghost in the machines here.
The ghost of my self-esteem. So yeah, complaining about most people aside, this is an absolutely inspired choice for a Rumble. I mean, all 3 of these are new machines to BattleBots. All 3 of them look like they won't do very much, when what you've really got is 3 extremely experienced veteran roboteers who you can guarantee have brought robots that work. So to put these 3 in the arena against each other and just see what happens, brilliant. And I think this is one that has been put together to please the really old school fans. And it really shows that you've got people selecting these fights who aren't just TV people, but who are people that know the sport and know the history. And this fight, beyond any other in this episode, is what makes me so convinced that this series is going to be amazing. It shows that there is a really robust thought process behind these matchups. And I think they knew that it would show that.
It was a great fight.
And that's the thing. This shouldn't... Yeah, again, for these people, the just a box people, it's just a box, just a forklift, just a robot doing the splits. Shouldn't be good, should it? But we all knew going into this that it was going to be a great fight.
Well, you say we. I think you all knew. I was expecting this to be a bit of a weird fight. I wasn't expecting Mecha Rampage to do very well. I wasn't particularly expecting free shipping to do all that well. Because I
wasn't expecting free shipping to self-right. That's for sure.
No, I wasn't expecting that at all, no. For me, it was a better fight than I expected. I guess all you super fans maybe have a bit more knowledge.
I'd go as far as saying this might be the best fight of the episode. Better than the main event in many ways. Because it's an actual contest. Yeah,
it was. It's definitely up there. It's definitely it's the first or maybe the second best in the episode. Definitely, yeah. It was good. I love. Obviously, it's got flamethrowers in it. I like that. I like the fact that the robot was on fire for most of it. That was great.
Oh, the visual of a robot driving around 50% on fire.
It was a good fight. Went the distance.
Oh.
How does the judging work for this though?
For the Rumbles, I've never been quite sure. I think it's basically... Well, in this one it was easy because only 2 were running. So the normal point system can still apply of each judge gives 2 points for damage, 1 for control, 1 for aggression, 1 for strategy. And that's easy. If there were 3 running, I don't know if that would have been modified at all.
I guess what I wanted to clarify then is so Mecha Rampage was like officially, it was counted out, it was not in at all, so it wasn't in the running for the judges thing, right?
Presumably. I mean, it looked like it had been dead for a while. They didn't show a count out, but you feel like it must have been.
The thing is, it was sort of like it being counted out, I think, coincided very closely with the end of the fight in general. Or was it, did the fight go for 3 minutes? Now that I'm sort of saying this, was it that we'll go and, I guess, no, it must have gone for 3 minutes, because there's no way they'd sort of stop the fight when one of them dies, is there?
No.
No. Because I think I guess on the condition that Mecha Rampage was counted out, then I think I'm more okay with the judge's decision. But I think if it wasn't like formally counted out, I don't think Duck should have won it.
So are you saying that you think the winner of this fight was the robot that was almost entirely on fire for half of it?
I think they did more damage.
I don't deny that. I don't think they had superior aggression, control, or strategy. I think Duck had all three of those.
I guess because I was sort of because I'm sort of so used to how heavily they weight damage in this. Maybe I'm just sort of like still misunderstanding how all the judging stuff works. But I was surprised that Duck got it. I feel like Duck was definitely the crowd favourite, and I wonder how much of like them chanting Duck was the judges going that way. I think the thing that most surprising to me, I guess, is that it was a unanimous decision. I was sort of expecting it to not be unanimous, because I thought maybe one of them will sort of go with the crowd there and give it to Duck. And the others will go, well, actually, they didn't do as much damage as Mecha Rampage. But then, if Mecha Rampage is being counted out, if it's just not in the running from that point, and it's only between Duck and free shipping, then yeah, I think I'm more happy with it going to Duck.
I mean, I see it as completely uncontentious because I hadn't really considered the idea that Mecha Rampage might be part of the decision. To me, it was just kind of assumed. But now you mention it, yeah, it's a really interesting point. And I guess the time we're likely to learn how this really works will be the time where 3 are still running at the end of 1.
Yeah.
You've thrown my worldview, Sam. I don't like this.
I'm sorry.
Just to be super clear, by the way, the judging criteria, again, there'll be a link to this in the show notes, and you've got it on your show notes. It is a fairly simple point system of each judge gives 2 points for damage, 1 for aggression, 1 for control, 1 for strategy. And then it's literally most points wins. So in that respect, for a 1v1, it's quite simple. Damage points can be split 1-on-1 if they want to. Obviously, the other ones can't be split. Something I should mention as a slight issue with this fight is just the amount of time that Hal Rucker stood there doing his duck hands got a bit creepy. All you needed to do was like twice of the open and close, and that would have been plenty. But no, you just carried on. Also, just strictly as a point of order, I in the past have said that Ray Billings is the Pierce Hawthorne of BattleBots. I'm going to say that Hal Rucker is the Frank Howarth.
Okay.
There's a severe visual similarity there to me.
I was not expecting that comparison at all.
Next up, we have Sub-Zero versus Huge. And I had to do that.
On the topic, I guess, then, of visual similarities, I think the guy that's doing Sub-Zero looks a little bit like Steve... I don't know how you pronounce his surname, Buscemi? I don't know how you pronounce that.
Yes! Steve Buscemi, yes! That is completely fair.
I think he sounds a little bit like him as well, which is really weird.
There's only one problem with you saying that, and that is that I'm now going to go on and say a number of negative things about Sub-Zero, and I don't want this to come off as bullying, so I'm hoping you've got some nice things to say.
We'll see.
I mean, to be fair, my negatives are framed in a positive, and that is that last series, Sub-Zero had a really tough time. They struggled to get finished on time, they still brought something, and they still were bold enough to put it in a really tough fight against Ice Wave that they knew they were not only going to lose, but lose badly. So as a team, I have a lot of respect for them just based on that. And I really loved the design of the old Sub-Zero. It had that big kind of scoop, but it was still that kind of Bronco-style flipper. And I really liked that, and I was looking forward to seeing that, but finished. And instead, they've turned up with something that's just not as interesting to me. It's kind of another spatula flipper, but the pivot is further forward, so it's more like a sort of Rhino-style flipper. And it's not quite what I was hoping for. It's just come off as kind of ungainly. I was really looking forward to seeing that big scoop getting in under things and launching them. And I don't think we're going to get that now.
To be fair to them, I'm not sure, even if we assume that Huge's weapon wasn't going to work, I still think we wouldn't have seen anything from it because it's such a hard robot to flip or get under or do anything with. Not to get under, but you know what I mean, to like do something useful with. So, and also it's got the two big antenna thing sticking out of the back to try and deal with Huge as well. So like, I think this was not a great fight for it to show off its strengths, and I hope that they manage to sort of reattach that flipper enough for the next fight, so that we get to see it do things against like maybe a more traditional, more standard opponent that they can sort of get under and actually toss around a bit. So I think this wasn't the fight for them to show off. I think it was a really hard.
Oh yeah, it was a harsh matchup.
It's a really harsh. I think it's a shockingly hard fight. I think for any robot.
Talking of Huge, oh boy. I mean, I was excited as soon as someone just first said the words heavyweight Huge. And it's only increased since then. What a I want to say what a machine. I'm not sure it is a triumph of engineering or anything like that. I think it's a triumph of fever dreams is what Huge is. I sometimes have weirdly emotional reactions to sport, and Huge winning this fight took me to that place. To the point where I think there may have been a tear just on watching them win and seeing how much it meant to them. I could not be happier.
It was a really good fight, actually. I did enjoy it. I do wish that Huge had some tires on it so that it had a little bit more traction. I feel like it lacked traction against the arena floor, and then it seemed to lack traction, I guess, between like on its drive belts as well. So I think a bit more focus on the drive, and I think it would be a pretty formidable robot, actually. Not that it isn't formidable now. I mean, I don't know how you fight that robot. But I think if it had tires and a little bit more control of where it was going, I think it could be up there as a potentially winning robot, to be honest.
As it is now, I think that Huge beautifully toes the line between ridiculous and competitive.
Yeah.
And I think if you added tires, it would take it too far into competitive.
Oh.
It would look like they were trying too hard at that point. I think by keeping it slightly flawed, it stays in that really likeable position.
I would like it more if it had tyres.
The other thing is, I imagine that adding tyres to that thing would actually cost quite a lot of weight, just because you can have a lot of tyre.
Yeah, it might not need tyres. I just think it needs something. If nothing else, they need to do something about that drive thing, because you could see it slipping, like it was. The drive belt was slipping and the wheel wasn't going anywhere. So I think they need to do something about that, if nothing else, and maybe, I don't know, like rubber dots around the wheels, something quite lightweight, just to give it a bit more traction, maybe.
I mean, let's be very clear about Huge as a robot. It's barely mobile. It's not at all manoeuvrable. It's quite difficult for it to really hit something with its weapon unless it literally drives straight between its legs. Everything about it, from a fairly objective standpoint, screams this does not work. And that's why it works. And, Sub-Zero completely played into their hands. The additions they made were just easy things for it to break. I think they massively underestimated it. Their driving style did nothing to help. The one time they got around the side and pushed it with ease, because, tiny slippery contact points with the floor make you quite easy to push. They didn't do anything with that when they had the opportunity. They haven't been the toughest opposition, but that's the point. No one knows how to fight it.
Yeah, I think it could be a more effective robot, though. Like, I think, I don't know why you seem to be resisting the idea of making it a better robot.
I'm not resisting it necessarily. I just...
Because you're sort of like holding up the fact that it's not a very mobile or maneuverable robot as some kind of a positive. And it's like, well, if it were more... I think making it more maneuverable and more mobile would be fairly easy. I don't think it would take much to do that, and I think it would make it a much better thing. And like, I know it's got to target a little bit more to get stuff between the two big wheels to hit it, but I think, if you just, like I said, a bit more traction on the wheels and stuff, I think you could do that. And I think it could be a I genuinely think that this robot could be winning tournaments, and I don't understand why you'd push against that in any way.
I think the main strength of Huge is the fact that people will underestimate it, and that's only going to last so long. 2 or 3 good fights and suddenly everyone's going to be scared of you, as they should be. And I feel like the more you optimise, the more you set yourself up for a fall. I'd rather it was just a plucky underdog.
If we just wind the clock back a little bit, right, so that we haven't seen it fight yet, and let's say the only change they make is to make the drive belt not slip, that would just be better. Like, it would have been, I think it would have been a better fight, because it wouldn't have had quite the slow end. Like, the ending of this fight was quite slow because both robots can't really move very much, and I just sort of think, I don't think that would detract from it being a robot that's easy to underestimate either. Like, even if you put tyres on it, if you imagine you put like the silly looking tyres that like Gabriel had on it, like the bike tyres that are just being bolted to it and stuff, I don't think that makes, you don't look at that and go, oh, that's a really serious robot. You look at that and go, oh, that's a big plastic, it's like, oh, that's a big plastic wheel that's had some bike tyres stapled to it. It's like, you're not going to take that much more seriously than you would the robot as it is, but it would be a better robot. And I think it would still have all the underdogginess that you're looking for, but I think it would be a better robot and a more entertaining robot to see fight.
I don't know. I guess I just find it hard to accept that Huge isn't perfect the way it is. I suppose what I'm really hoping for is a Nuts 2 style story from Huge. You know, a robot that is flawed in many ways but succeeds anyway. And the less flaws it has, the less meaningful that would be. It's like no one's excited when Tombstone wins BattleBots, because you expect it. But if Huge came through and did it, oh, that'd be beautiful. And if it did it with obvious improvements having not even been made, that'd be even better.
I don't know. I think it would be very exciting if it won with rubber tyres and better grip on its drive chain. I still think that would be exciting.
To be fair, I think the drive belt thing is possibly intentional, because either the drive belt's going to slip or the wheel's going to slip. And once wheels start slipping, it's very hard to stop them slipping.
Well, either way, it needs more grip somewhere.
I agree. There are lots of things you can do to improve Huge, but you'd just be sucking the soul out of it. And souls matter, Sam.
To you, maybe. What's happening with the arena floor in this fight?
Robots are driving over it. There's quite a large amount of static air pressure acting on it as well. Possibly a little heating. I don't know. What are you looking for?
I thought for a second that the arena had been given a flipper in the middle of it.
Oh, the Hellraisers. They've been there for years. Just little lifty platforms that are really annoying.
Is that actually like a lifter that's there by design? That's not like a panel that was coming up? Because that just looked like it was a panel that was flopping around whenever a robot drove over it.
If you look, there are two of them. So two rectangles next to each other. Imagine you're looking down on them, so they're sort of vertical in your vision, if that makes any sense whatsoever. The outer edges are straight, and the inner edges, where the two of them are sort of face to face, are almost jigsawed. So the straight edge is the hinge, the jigsawed end is the bit that lifts up. They were a staple of old school BattleBots. They largely got in the way rather than doing anything good. They had a really annoying tendency to raise them at the start of a fight. So two robots would try and drive at each other and just get stuck on them. It was really boring. I'm surprised they still have them. This is one of the few times I've seen them even lift.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen them before. There. Okay.
Here's something interesting I heard somewhere about the BattleBots arena. It used to be, back in the old school series of BattleBots, that all of the hazards were controlled by a person who would choose when to activate them to damage a robot. And I heard, I don't know if this is true, I don't know if anyone listening can confirm or completely debunk this, but I've heard that due to regulations of a game show, which BattleBots is kind of classed as, they can no longer be human controlled and have to be random to avoid any potential for sort of bias.
That makes sense, I guess.
Which might also explain why programs like to put hazards in the control of the teams instead.
Yeah.
Because then you've got hazards that are actually going to hit effectively without just being random.
Yeah. Weird.
It's my little dubious fact of the day. Dubious facts with Ryan.
Is that going to be a recurring segment?
I mean, I feel like it's been a recurring segment for 28 episodes so far, so... If anything, it could just be the bloody title. Shall we move on?
Yes. Judges gave that fight to Huge, by the way.
Was it even a decision?
In the event that people are listening to this having not seen the episode.
Basically, Huge won, and the judges were incidental. That's what happened there. This fight is going to be a source of much-needed inconsistency from me.
Brilliant. So we have Bombshell versus Lockjaw.
I like Bombshell.
What?
They've come in purely as a vertical spinner, albeit one that doesn't seem to be very effective. They've dispensed everything else, and they're just a single-purpose robot now.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure they've not got some way of changing the weapon setup?
Yeah, basically, because of the incredibly tight time frame for building, and because of the immense amount of work that it takes to make a completely modular robot with many different weapon options, they just came in with the vertical.
But they've already built a robot with an immense number of weapon options.
Did you see what happened to it? I doubt much was left.
They've had ages to rebuild it, though. Like, I know they haven't, like, they just waited until they've had a reason to rebuild it.
You must be the kind of person that, like, buys gifts in case you need them, if that's the way you're thinking. Buy the gift now, find someone to give it to later. You don't do that. They're not going to build unless they've got a competition to build for.
Well, that's fair enough. That makes sense. I'm still kind of shocked that you like it, though. I thought the name alone would be enough for you to be to hold that against it.
I mean, I know that I have a bias against Bombshell just from the first time I saw the team. I think the fact it was a really big team somehow put me off. And I still carry that bias, and I don't like that I have that bias. What I do know and what I have to remind myself of is that Mike Jeffries is an extremely talented builder. And the Bombshell that we saw last series would have been an incredibly difficult thing to design and build. And as much as I didn't like it, I cannot deny that it was very effective, very well made. So all of those things basically force me to like this version. I don't love the design of it. I think it's a bit too wedgy. I'd rather they'd stuck with 4-wheel drive rather than 2. I wish that it didn't so easily balance on its face. You know, there are lots of things about it that are suboptimal, let's say.
Yeah.
But I like the idea behind it because they've basically said, here's our robot, let's see who can beat it. Rather than, here's our selection of robot pieces, let's see who can beat what we turn them into.
This is, I think, revealing a deep truth about you, Ryan, which is that you just fundamentally like bad robots. I think that's what's going on here. If someone presents to you a good robot, you're like, no, don't like that, don't want anything to do with that. And then someone goes, but I've got the same name, same team, but I've made it worse in several ways with obvious flaws. And now Ryan is like, this is fantastic. Best robot ever.
I think the fundamental truth about me that this reveals is that I have a very strong idea of what is the morally correct way of doing things. And I hold in higher regard people that fail following my rules than succeed breaking them. You know, I have a worldview that says things should be done a certain way. And if you do things my way, I'm going to like you. If you don't, I still might like you, but it's not guaranteed.
I think you should need to admit the fact that you like bad robots. I think that's just what this is coming down to.
Yeah, there are a lot of bad robots that I like. There are also some bad robots that I don't like. And some good robots that I do.
Like jellyfish that you like for some reason.
I think the true truth here...
Foxic that you like for some reason.
I have a lot of hope for Foxic is what I have.
There's no hope for that robot.
The real thing that's revealed here is that you're a hopeless elitist.
Has that been revealed or has that been known?
I mean, it was never hidden, but...
I mean, who do you think the aloof engineer is in the title for the first episode?
I think you don't give yourself enough credit for liking certain robots. The fact that you seem to like free shipping, you know, that's a win for you.
That's a
that's not a particularly competitive design.
But that's a well-executed robot.
You see, that's the thing. You have your own criteria that can make you like something even if it doesn't fit with your main philosophy. I
have the correct criteria. You, sir, have the wrong criteria.
Your opinions are objective truth, I know. Anyway, we're in danger of defining things here, so let's steer away.
We should steer away from defining things, but I think the commentators here decided to have a crack at defining discs.
Excuse me?
With Lockjaw. It definitely referred to those two little spinning things in the middle of those jaw, or the middle of those lifters there. They called them discs. Lockjaw has multiple discs. Now,
Kenny and Chris have palpably become more knowledgeable as they've gone through, but nobody's perfect. That's all I have to say on the matter. That is my statement.
Fair enough.
Now, Lockjaw's a topic in itself, isn't it?
It's kind of lost its namesake a little bit. It's like that, what was it, Bite Force? It's sort of like, it's not really, the name doesn't fit the robot anymore. And I think the same is true of Lockjaw now. I think that the defining thing of Lockjaw was that spring-powered flipper thing. Mm. And it doesn't have that anymore.
Have you ever done that thing where you go down the local sports bar for a night with the guys, have a few frosty ones, shoot a few frames of pool, you know, put a few songs on the jukebox, stumble home, absolutely drunk out of your mind, go to bed, you wake up the next morning and you've accidentally built Hypershock, because Donald Hudson has.
I don't know who you're describing, but it's not me. None of what you described fits me in any way.
I'm fully aware of that, but I went with it anyway.
Don't go to sports bars. I don't get drunk. Don't drink alcohol in general.
Well, all right, Mr. Virtue.
Don't come home and suddenly find that I've built someone else's robot by accident.
But seriously, this is Hypershock. That's what this is. This isn't Lockjaw.
Yeah. I mean, it's got different wheels.
Lockjaw was an original and exciting machine. It didn't fit the meta, but Donald made it work by being a good driver. That fight with Yeti last series, that was an amazing fight. He had a really unique design, one that was his own that he'd been using for a long time. He's taken that and he's made it boring. And you know what? It's probably going to work better for him. It's probably going to be a more competitive robot. But honestly, what's the point? And I'm fully aware that I'm saying this after praising a team for building a fairly generic vertical spinner.
Well, this is the thing. As soon as if anytime a robot gets worse, you like it more. And if someone takes a robot and makes it better, like a more competitive robot, you're like, no, I don't like it anymore. You seem to just sort of reject anyone trying to do well at this sport. As soon as someone comes along and takes it seriously, Mr. Legitimate Sporting Competition decides that it's not worthy anymore.
The reason I'm upset is that he has actively decreased the diversity of the field. Just the same as Paul did with changing Bite Force into a vert. You know, fair play, it's what he wanted to build, completely within his rights to do it, but I don't have to like it. And that was meant to be far less aggressive than it sounded. It's like, he can do what he wants, but I don't have to like it.
No, you clearly don't like it.
Moving on to the fight, one thing I have to say is that Donald Hudson is not a man who is often remembered for his acts of sportsmanship. But boy, do I appreciate him keeping this fight going. Fair play to him. He didn't have to do that. He did the right thing.
He spent a long... I wonder if it was sort of like an intentional thing to leave it to the, like... I wonder if like when it was clear that Bombshell couldn't move anymore, it was like, right, I'll write them, but I'm going to leave it a little bit just to build the suspense. Or if he really was thinking about it for that long, because he righted them again, so like 2 or 3 seconds on the count left before he went in, and I don't know if it was a playing the crowd or if he just wasn't sure what he was going to do.
I think it's 50-50 in terms of the likelihood of each.
But yeah, he didn't have to do it. I'm kind of surprised that he did, because that could very easily have gone very wrong for him. But I'm glad that he did, because it was, a longer fight, and that's good.
I'm surprised, but I don't want to be. I think if there's ever a time to do it, this was the time. Because you're in a situation where you know that while your results are going to count towards you potentially getting into the final 16, you also know that there's an element of producer choice. And I feel like if we're going to be really... I can't find the word to describe what I mean here, but there is a cynical... If you want to be cynical about it, you could see this as point scoring with the producers. I don't think it was that, but it's a potential element to it. I think it's mostly just the right thing to do to entertain the crowd that have sat there waiting for you to get set up and want to see a good fight. And I think it's also something that you would hope someone would do back to you. Yeah, I've lost my way on this because I couldn't think of the word cynical, and now it's all just gone to pot. But basically, thanks, Donnie.
Yeah, it was good.
I don't know if he likes being called Donnie. I don't care.
Don't care about anyone's feelings today, blimey. No, this was a good fight. I am disappointed that Bombshell had such an obvious flaw in how easy it is to get put on its front, and it seems to have no way of recovering from that, which is a shame.
Well, the way it has of recovering is to use the weapon when it's working, which is something that we see a lot with vertical spinners. Their self-righting is based on the weapon righting them, which is fine, but I would rather that teams design their robots in such a way that they can work without their weapon.
Yeah, but their weapon was working, and it didn't right them.
They were having severe issues with the motors. They were barely getting spun up.
Okay.
And bear in mind that these motors tend to be set up and geared for high RPM. That means they have quite low startup torque.
Yeah, so like I don't think any like this is, I guess what you're saying is sort of like you like I don't think there's any even if the motor's working well, I'm not sure the disc would help them self-right unless it was already spun up when they got flipped. I mean, if they're in the position they're in, I don't think there's ever going to be enough torque in a vertical spinner's weapon drive to right it again. So like why, like I said, it seems like a rather obvious flaw in Bombshell. It
might be that they're just assuming that the weapon will be running when they get flipped. I would hope that they've planned for it to be able to right from a completely sort of stationary setup. I don't know if that's the case. I hope it is. Hope is all we have. Fair to say that this was the dud fight of the episode?
Well, as compared to everything else, yes, but I still think it was a reasonably good fight. Like, it was still entertaining to watch.
I'm not sure it was. But again, that is probably because I just saw it in the context of the 3 that went before it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like as compared to everything else, it's not as good. But like I still think it was a reasonably good fight. There's the bit of tension around whether or not Lockjaw's going to right Bombshell there. Bombshell is amazingly quick as it runs around. That's quite sort of fun to see. And then there's the inevitable end. I think it was fine.
I think the reason you've enjoyed this fight a bit and I haven't is purely that I've seen it so many times.
Well, there you go. You should watch things less.
It was exciting on the first couple of views, I suppose. And you're just not past that point yet because, as we've established, you're a filthy casual. Sorry. Just a casual. That's the one. Just a casual fan.
Just a viewer.
This is just a podcast. Upcoming rebranding for the 1-year anniversary. Could be a nice Twitter bio change, actually.
All right, and should we finish up with Tombstone versus Minotaur?
Congratulations on underselling that as much as you possibly could have.
Well, it's a fairly uneventful fight, Two unknown robots, just sort of.
I'm not even sure why they made this a main event, really. It was never going to deliver on its promise.
Well, you say that. I do think the way this fight ended was a bit disappointing.
Yes, absolutely. And considering the sportsmanship we'd seen in the fight before, I'll be honest, I was hoping that... And I realise this is a really stupid thing to hope for from Ray, but I was kind of hoping that he might nudge him off and keep it going.
No, of course he wouldn't. I think apart from anything, I think by that point in the fight, I think Tombstone was beginning to struggle a little because I think it delivered a lot. Yeah, it delivered a lot of really big hits, and I think that showed. So I don't think I think if Minotaur had gotten stuck really early in the fight, I'd like to think that he'd free them, but probably not. But towards the end of the fight, yeah, it's no surprise at all that he just left Minotaur there and laughed at them. That's fine.
I remember seeing in one of the trailers a slow motion shot from this fight where I looked at it and something just didn't look right with the bar. And I spent a while looking at it and couldn't figure out what it was. Having watched this fight, I now know what was wrong with that bar. I don't know what's actually gone wrong there, but you feel like Ray's had a lot of repairs to do after this.
I know what's wrong with that bar. I don't actually know what's wrong with the bar, but I know that Ray's had to do a lot of repairs. What is wrong with the bar?
I know that there was something wrong with the bar then, let's put it that way. Please tell me you realise the problem with the bar.
It was hitting the floor.
I was hoping for a little more detail than that.
Right, you explain then. Other than it kept hitting the floor, what is the problem with the bar?
So, Ray sets out with the bar in kind of an undercutting mode. So it's set very low on the axis, set very low on the axle, and it's kind of tilted forwards very slightly to get right in underneath Minotaur. Because if you have it too high up, the drum can uppercut you and bye-bye floor contact. And what happened at some point during the fight is that bar, instead of being tilted slightly forwards, it migrated somehow to being tilted sideways. So the low point of the spin, as it were, rather than being at 12 o'clock, ended up round at more like 1 or 2 o'clock.
Okay.
It literally looked like he'd had his nose broken. And it looked... I don't know how that's happened. I don't know... Well, I think I know what happened, which is there were a couple of moments where he did his usual thing of go up alongside a robot with the bar spinning clockwise and spin clockwise into them. He did that quite a few times, and what I think was happening is Minotaur was getting thrown up in the air and landing back down on the top of the bar on that right-hand side. So I don't know if that's managed to twist the whole assembly of the bar, because it looked like some of his top panels were starting to come loose. I don't know if that's because of some flex in the chassis or what it was. I don't know if, however, the sort of bar was mounted to tip forwards had just been rotated a bit. But either way, it was causing him a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, it was a very intense fight. I think there's, Tombstone is an incredibly well-built robot, but I think even that can't withstand its own power for very long.
I mean, I counted in this fight yesterday, I think it was. And by my count, which was maybe a slightly liberal definition of a hit, I counted about 35 hits on Minotaur. I feel like that's basically a whole series worth of hits for Tombstone. How often do we see them finish a fight in 3 or 4? How often does he have to use the weapon for that long in a fight? It's practically unheard of. The only time I can think of him having that weapon running for a full 3 minutes and not getting a KO is against Beta. And even for that, he spent quite a lot of that fight stuck in the corner with it not spun up. This is it's harsh on Minotaur to fight Tombstone this early, but it's also harsh on Tombstone.
Yeah. How on earth did Minotaur take that many hits, do you reckon? I mean, that was just incredible. I was sort of like, I think the only other robot we've seen take, or that I can think of, and I'm sure you're going to give me a long list of examples of other robots taking a ridiculous number of hits from a horizontal spinner. But the other one that springs to mind is Gabriel 2 against Carbide there. And it's sort of like, and that's obviously a very, very different design. I'm sort of just amazed that a very sort of compact little boxy robot like Minotaur has managed to last that long. It's incredible.
The only other example I can think of is the Beta one. And even that's a dodgy example because they completely lost the weapon assembly.
Mm.
When it comes to defending against spinners, you've got a couple of routes that you go. So you do what Beta does of big, heavy wedge. You've got the less common but clearly quite viable Gabriel approach of extreme flexibility. Or you've got what Minotaur does of just being really compact and having really thick armour. And I'm fairly sure that Minotaur is almost entirely aluminium. So I'm guessing that what's happened is that most of those hits have basically been absorbed by the armour just completely deforming.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a picture earlier today of Minotaur after the fight, and it's just...
Ooh, where?
Huge, on Reddit somewhere. It's just huge gashes taken out of it.
I mean, I'm guessing, the frame rails down the side, they're going to be completely cracked through, I'd imagine. The whole thing could easily be just a complete rebuild after that. I mean, yes, it's kept running, but you wouldn't want to put it in again necessarily. So I've got to find this picture now. I hadn't seen this. Oh, that is barely recognisable. I do think that Minotaur might have gone in with an old drum on as well. One that had already taken a few hits.
That would make sense as a sensible strategy, I think.
But yeah, again, seeing this kind of reinforces what I believe in that I think a lot of the energy of those hits was absorbed by the aluminium armour deforming. The other thing that we saw a lot of when the drum was still running is that they'd get hit, the hit would try to spin them, and they'd therefore basically jump in the air instead, which was a beautiful thing to watch.
Well, there was like a self-right really early on in the fight. It got upside down and then just effortlessly pirouetted around and ended up the right way. And that was a very fun thing to see as well.
Daniel is an amazing driver. Absolutely incredible.
I'm gonna play the happy accident card, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, feel free to play that, and then I'm gonna go find like all the RoboGames footage from last year where he does that repeatedly. Not from this year because someone else was driving, but in fact we'd also get it from BattleBots last time round as well.
I'm not denying he's a good I'm not denying that he's a good driver.
Then there's the footage of the likes of Concussion and Sabretooth both doing the same. Like every middleweight drum spinner from RoboGames doing the same. But yeah, it's a happy accident.
It's not quite so effortless. That's the thing. It was sort of like so quick and smooth. Happy accident.
What do you think he was trying to do instead?
Look, just some things are too good, okay? Too good to be true.
Clearly not this episode. I really don't know what else to say about this fight. It's just too good to talk about. Obviously, Tombstone's tactics were perfect. Completely nullified the weapon of Minotaur by basically going in at the bottom of it. I noticed he took one of the little forks off immediately as well.
Mm.
This is one of the situations where Minotaur would maybe benefit from having a proper wedge option, but I feel like that's not an option they would ever want to take.
Yeah, a wedge on the front might be a bit tougher, wouldn't it? And then they'd have a bit more redundancy in their feeding system there.
Mm. It would prevent the undercutting strategy, really. It would get them at least one good uppercutting hit.
It would detract from the aesthetics a little bit, though.
I think it would also just not fit with their philosophy of all-out attack, even though it would really help their attack.
Imposing your inconsistency on other teams now, are you?
Not just on other teams, just on the world. Is there anyone in the field that you think could take that much of a beating?
I mean, I don't know the field very well, so this is going to be a...
That's the point. We never did a preview, did we? Because we've been lazy on podcasting. Well, I've been lazy. You've been legitimately busy. I mean, the one I'd throw out there is Duck.
I think Duck maybe could sort of do that. The other one that sort of like springs to mind, obviously, is Huge, but I think that's a bit just because of the. I think it's probably just a little bit too fragile. I think it would. I think because it's not got the solid wheels that Gabriel 2 has, I think because it's got those big holes in the wheels, I think there's a very, very real chance that a bar spinner could just slice through the wheels, really.
Yeah, it's got a massive bite point.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the reason that Gabriel was so effective. It's basically a big shield, a big flexible shield that you slide off of. Whereas, yeah, Huge doesn't have that going for it.
Yeah, I think even if a bar like didn't cut through the wheel, I think it would basically just yank the wheel off or send them flying. It's just I think the holes in the wheels are not advantageous to defense, only advantageous to weight, I guess.
Also, the other issue with Huge, against a horizontal, we saw this at Motorama. I think it was the Beetleweight version of Huge, maybe the featherweight, I can't remember which. But in one fight, as soon as it took a single hit to the side of that bar, it basically broke the robot in half.
Yeah, there is a big weak point there, really, isn't there?
I imagine they've done all they can to mitigate against that, but I'm not sure how much there is to do about it.
No, I mean, you've basically got to cut your robot in half to put that bar there. So yeah, there's not a huge amount that they can. Not a huge amount they can do.
One thing we haven't discussed with this fight is the arena damage. We've not really seen any arena damage in BattleBots so far, and then suddenly we've got all of it.
Yeah, big chunks of the floor being ripped up.
And of course, we kind of alluded earlier to the disappointing nature of the ending, but there is something quite cool about, pinning a robot up on a hazard that you created.
Yeah, so what happened obviously is Tombstone got sent flying and it went along the floor and just took huge chunks of the floor and just left these spikes of whatever that is, it steel that the floor's made from, I guess, and just left those up. And then at the end of it, Minotaur unfortunately was just left beached on one of them, which was a shame. So yeah, disappointing end to an otherwise very exciting fight, I think.
But there's every chance we'll see this again in the final 16, where I imagine exactly the same thing will happen again. I'm aware you don't know the field as well as I do, but are there any machines you're particularly looking forward to seeing that we haven't seen in this episode?
Chomp.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that I like Chomp and I want to see it fight.
That's a good reason. Chomp have come in with some quite serious upgrades to the autonomy.
Even more reason to want to see it. There you go.
They've got a kind of keep your distance mode on it, I think they're calling it, where they'll basically approach a robot, activate this, and it will maintain whatever gap they've got to them. I think it's mostly for using the flamethrower with. So I'll be very interested to see if/how that works. Yeah,
that'd be cool. Well, you can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episodes/29. There you can find links to all the robots and stuff we've been talking about today. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet unto us the robots that you are excited to see in the future of BattleBots.
That was very on topic.
So this weekend, SpaceX launched their first ever Falcon 9 Block 5, and I was unable to watch it live, which is disappointing because the night that I could watch it live, they scrubbed, and then I was in the car on the way to Devon when it launched.
Devon has really ruined everything, hasn't it?
Devon has put a real dampener on the weekend. In many ways.
I also missed it, I must say, because I assumed it was going to be on at the same time as the original one, which was, with hindsight, stupid. So I tuned in when it was already, I think it was just before second stage ignition. No, sorry, just before second stage separation and final stage ignition, so I missed a lot of the good stuff. I did, however, see the glitchy landing. Those
landing videos are always glitchy. They can never maintain a solid broadcast through them, which is a shame because it is very exciting to watch.
It was a fact we missed all of the interesting parts.
I have since gone back obviously and watched the launch, and it was the uneventful launch that we'd sort of expect it to be, really, other than the fact that it was a brand new rocket. That was it. It was a standard.
I was going to complain that it was boring, but I suppose that's the greatest success possible, isn't it, really?
It's kind of the point, yeah. So Block 5 changes from Block 5 to earlier ones. So this is like the final iteration of Falcon 9. This is meant to be the last version of this that they're ever going to do. And they're going to fly another 300 or so missions with this rocket, by which point I think they're hoping that they'll be able to move everything over to BFR. They'll have like a different rocket to replace it that will do everything they want all rockets to do. Can't believe they're doing 300 launches with just one rocket. With one design of rocket. So the idea is that each core that they build should be able to do about 10 flights is what they're expecting. That's a lot of flights. That is a lot of flights. So they're hoping to do 10 per core with minimal refurb, and maybe several more with a bit more refurbishment done. The idea of like being able to do this is that they can one of the big marketing points, I guess, that SpaceX keeps sort of leaning on is that they want to be able to have one of these land and then be relaunched within 24 hours. And in order to do that, they need to be able to have this thing like refueled and good to go without having to like take the rocket apart again to inspect everything. So they've flown one, they've landed it. They now need to take this one apart to prove that they don't need to take them apart anymore, which I think is quite funny. But yeah, so in order to facilitate that, I think they've sped up the fuel loading process. So they load the liquid oxygen and the kerosene at the same time. I think before they would do one then the other. I forget the exact order, but now they're loading both simultaneously on the first stage, and then the second stage still has them done synchronously. So one then the other. So they can fuel it quicker. They've got brand new landing legs, which do not need to be removed from the rocket in order to be sort of reset and folded back up again. So the old ones, there was a one-way latch. It was like they go out and that's it. And then you need to like unbolt, you need to sort of like lift it all up and then unbolt them, and then you can retract them once they're all unbolted and removed from the rocket. These ones can just be reset back up.
And they're black.
And they're black. So yeah, there's a bunch of components on this rocket that are black that weren't before. I think they've basically got an improved like thermal coating that doesn't need painting for whatever reason. I think they continue to paint the main body of the rocket white so that it reflects heat, so that it's not like absorbing heat when it's on the launch pad, which would be bad for the sub-zero temperatures that they need to maintain for the fuel and oxidizer.
Is that also a consideration once it's in orbit?
For the second stage, it's a bit of a consideration, yeah. But I mean, it sort of like burns off so much of its fuel at that point anyway. It's sort of not as much of a concern, I think. And the second stage isn't in orbit for very long.
So it just occurs to me that basically lots of spacecraft are white, which I'm guessing is a thermal consideration.
Yeah, they need to reflect as much heat as they can. So all the bits on the Falcon 9 really that don't have tanks in them basically are just left unpainted as they are with the improved thermal protection. They don't need to use like thermal protection paint or anything like that. They've just got it. So the legs do that. The bottom of the first stage around the Octaweb assembly is like that now, and the interstage is as well. I think it looks worse still. I don't like it, but that's what they've done.
If it's genuinely been done for performance rather than aesthetics, then fair play.
Yeah, I think it is a performance thing. And probably a cost saving and weight saving. I mean, paint is not a light thing.
I was just going to say, how much weight do you reckon they save by not painting stuff?
Probably more than you'd think. So, like the early shuttle launches, like the external tank, the big, like famously orange tank, was originally white. They did paint it. But they found after a couple of launches that they don't need to, because it's the tank is basically covered in foam as its sort of thermal insulation, and they didn't need to paint it in order to sort of be safe on the launch pad for the length of time as it would be. So they stopped doing it because it takes forever to paint and it's very heavy. So they sort of got a bit more performance out of the shuttle by not painting it. And I would imagine it's not going to be as big a difference on the Falcon 9 just because the loss of paint is not as much, but I think
it's
it
still
helps.
Valuable. This is a game of tiny margins.
Yeah, every little helps with these things. They've also
Tesco spokesperson.
Yeah. They've also yet again improved the thrust performance of the Merlin engines on the bottom. I think they've got another 8% out of them. So I don't know. I need to wonder. I need to look at how much more powerful the modern Merlin engines are as compared to the original Merlin engine, because I think it's quite insane.
The thing I've got here says 10% over the previous one, but
I think it's like 8 to 10% over the previous one.
That's already a big change.
And then, but basically every block version of the Falcon that we're aware of does a similar thing. I think it's a significant, as compared to the Merlin engines on the original Falcon 9, like the version 1 with the square arrangement at the bottom. It's just enormous. Oh man, what else has changed? So much. Roland, do you have any thoughts on anything that I've gone through so far?
Not particularly, no. It's all the typically boring things that you wouldn't even think would be improved. Really? Which is good. That's how it should be.
I guess another boring change, I guess, is so this. I think you sent me a message that I couldn't reply to because I was out of signal. But there was no fairing recovery attempt on this one. This was using fairing version 1. SpaceX have got a second version of the fairing, which is ever so slightly bigger, but that's the version that contains all the little thrusters and the big parachute for recovery. So that wasn't on this one, but I presume it will slowly be phased into more and more missions. But the other really big news for this version of the Falcon 9 is that this is the version that will be human rated.
That was going to be my next question.
So finally, there will be people other than Russia and I believe China that can launch people into space.
So what are likely to be the applications of it being human rated? Are we thinking particularly ISS things, or are they going to stick with the Russians?
No, the main thing is I think once there's a way of launching American astronauts from American soil, I can't imagine that America is going to continue to pay Russia to do that. I think as soon as SpaceX can do it, they're going to start doing it. And there's also a lot of activity from ULA and Boeing and stuff for also getting doing human-rated launches as well. So I think Block 5 will be considered sort of like human-rated after like 7 flights or something. So there's a bunch of requirements they had to meet in terms of like the specifications for the robot, in terms of like they do a bunch of analysis to do estimation of failure and how to sort of escape from failures and stuff. So they've obviously got the launch escape system that they've got to prove. So they've got to prove that the launch escape. Dragon 2 has the launch escape system on it. It's got the Super Draco thrusters, and they've done a pad abort test. So they've proven that if there's a problem on the pad that means that the astronaut needs to get away quickly, that will work. They still need to demonstrate the in-flight abort. So at some point, I think this year or maybe early next year, they're going to launch a rocket and then intentionally blow the top of it off. They're going to demonstrate that they can abort in flight, and then once they've also got like 7 or 10 or whatever, like sort of like successful flights of this iteration of the rocket with minimal changes, then they'll be like happy. NASA will be happy that this is a safe enough rocket to put people on.
I wonder if the astronauts would be happy at that.
The astronauts were willing to fly on a shuttle, and if they're willing to fly on a shuttle, they're basically willing to fly on anything. Really.
But then there weren't many other alternatives in the day of the shuttle.
There aren't many alternatives now. Like I said, the only other
there's the one
they're
they're already using, which is doing all right. I do wonder how willing NASA and the individuals within will be to switch from something that has proven so reliable.
I think the standards that SpaceX have had to reach to get this thing human rated are enormous. This thing is so much safer, I think, than any rocket that America has ever used before for doing human stuff. I mean, I think it can handle various levels of like engines failing. It's got like it's got like a fully autonomous like escape stuff. So like the rocket's making a lot more decisions based on a lot more data about when it's gonna eject the people if it needs to and stuff. And yeah, they've had a lot of stuff. They've had a lot of stuff they've needed to do.
And I guess I wonder if that matters as much as it should in these decision-making processes. I feel like with change like that, there's a real inertia, and you've got to overcome that first. And I just wonder how tricky that's going to be.
I think the political situation between America and Russia will give them a lot of motivation to move their launches to American-controlled stuff as quickly as they can.
Yeah.
I really do.
I'm going to get too political if I go anywhere with this, but
I really do.
They've got to be able to afford that, which at the moment isn't looking that easy.
Well, I think the SpaceX launches are cheaper than the Russian launches. So, you know, America, they save money and they get to say they're launching American people from American soil. I think there's a lot going for moving launches back to America.
In the long run, I'm sure it's cheaper, but there must be short-term costs associated with moving your systems and your protocols over.
They've already incurred most of that, I think. You know, like NASA are really pushing and giving a lot of funding to these other companies to do it. Like NASA, they want as many options as they can possibly have for launching people. So SpaceX is not the only American company going for this. So like I said, ULA and Boeing are working on, is it like Starliner or something is one of them, and there's even a third one that's going for having human-rated capability into space, and it's all coming from NASA contracts. So it's like it's not as if SpaceX have gone, let's see if we can persuade NASA to let us do this. It's like NASA are sort of like, yes, do it please. Here's a bunch of money, do it.
Or in the case of SpaceX, here's not a bunch of money. compared to what they're probably putting into the other projects.
Yeah, I mean, most of SpaceX's money still does come from NASA. I think that is the majority of their income still.
But that isn't exactly in the form of, grants and handouts. That's very much, we are doing things for you. We are essentially a contractor to you.
Yeah, as compared to some other, the proper, full government contractors that have... I forget how the structure works, but yeah, they get less money than other companies, but they do a lot more with it.
Any more upgrades to talk through?
I don't think so. There's titanium grid fins on it. We've seen them before. They are... Right, so the grid fins used to be aluminium. We've seen the titanium ones.
Rubbish material. No one likes it.
Yeah. They've been on Falcon Heavy. They've also been on a couple of other Falcon 9s and stuff. They are much more durable. And they've got water cooling on the bottom of the rocket for re-entry.
But why do you need cool water?
Well, because on re-entry, they've got a lot of heat from the atmosphere. So they need to, dissipate that heat somehow.
For the record, I did know that. I was trying to be hilarious.
I'm surprised they say water cooling. I would have thought it's liquid cooling.
Liquid cooling, yeah.
I would think it's one of the liquids they already have on that rocket. I doubt they're putting water on it.
No. They just bring up a little spritzer and tss, tss, every few seconds. Does a great job.
Yeah, Elon just says active cooling on the titanium heat shields at the base of the rocket. He doesn't sort of specify with what, so I would presume one of the other liquids. I feel like I've rambled on long enough about this. It's an exciting rocket. I'm excited to see it go. I'm really excited to see them get it human rated, so that there are more launches to the space station. I want the space station to continue going, or for them to build a new one, build a new space station
with blackjack and hookers.